That's right.
Hello.
Hello.
It's nice to be sit right here.
Yeah, just take a seat. You're good.
Awesome shirt, man.
Thanks, brother.
Oh, yeah, there's your shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it actually
that's
written
cool.
things or it's already made like that?
Nah, it's made like that.
You just filled it out this morning.
Yeah. I was in my room at 6 a.m.
So you guys, like I said, there's one more cast member that's coming and he's going to sort of pop in as soon as he can. That's Dee. But in the meanwhile, if you're ready, let's get started. I'll just do a show of hands and I'll pick as many of you as we can within the time allotted. So who'd like to go first?
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hey, this question is for you, Jonathan, from the Public Forces Radio Network. With George Lucas's announced impending retirement, is your role going to step up with things outside the Clone Wars?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that his retirement to us just means that he has more free time to come and watch the show. So I don't believe, I always tell him I don't believe him. When he stops showing up, then I'll believe him. But he has my cell phone number and he calls me with notes. He did that this week while I'm in Orlando. So, and I don't, he's taught me well to make all these decisions without him here. He told me years ago when he started that one of the reasons that I'm here is to make sure when he's not around that things go the way he wants. And so, I think it's a compliment to myself, my crew, to the different divisions of Lucasfilm that he feels confident in all of us enough to say that he would retire. And then he's done a great thing for us as a company by bringing someone like Kathleen Kennedy on to take over the reins. And I'm really excited about what she's going to bring to the table. My focus remains Clone Wars, and perhaps other projects that we may do in the future of Lucasfilm Animation, because I think as a division we've grown. We've demonstrated an ability to put out a really, I think, high quality of animation. I think Detours continues that tradition if you've seen any of the animation they've done. And, I just look forward to all the things we're going to be doing in our many divisions. But Clone Wars is always my focus.
Who's next?
This is for Dave. This is Brett Watts, the Geek. How many seasons have you written out? And we're at 5. You mentioned 6 last night. Are we definitely going to see a 7, 8, 9, 10?
I've always said, we'll keep making these episodes as long as people are watching them because of the demands of our production schedule to deliver this high-quality product. We work very far in advance. We have all of Season 5 finished, and of course we have been actually working on the scripts and designs that would be delivered for a Season 6. I hate to say it, it's some fantastic stuff, some amazing stuff. Where you see it, that's up to the people above me in the business world. So, I hope so, but we go season to season. Cartoon Network's been a great partner for us. I've always been excited by their support and everything they've done for the show. So, right now I'll just focus on Season 5, and if you've seen the trailer, the exciting things you're to see this year.
Well, why the change on the schedule? Why did they change it from 9 o'clock on Fridays?
They've actually moved their entire action block to Saturday mornings, and so we go with that. And I don't know. I mean, we might find an even bigger audience on Saturday mornings. I mean, I can remember as a kid being ecstatic about Saturday mornings. I used to get up to see Dungeons and Dragons. That was like my favorite Saturday morning. So there was no way I was missing that show. So if that's what we become, I think that's great for the people that go out Friday night and can't get up early Saturday morning, so to speak. I'm sure they're going to be DVRing the show, so it'll be interesting to see how the audience responds to it.
You mentioned last night you're going to think about it's better on the big screen. Are we going to have a second Clone Wars movie?
I really can't say. I think
That didn't mean anything.
Don't look at me, don't look at me.
These two. My whole thing is I think that it's great when the fans demand stuff. I think when you guys bring it up, I think that always helps motivate things. And
Why are they blushing? I'm just curious.
Yes, I promise that men absolutely.
These two over here, doing it again. 7 years, Padawan. 7 years. But, we focus, Joel and I, on making the quality of the show as cinematic as possible. We shoot at 235. It's ready to be projected, as you saw last night, anytime. And the stories are written as such as well. So I'm happy with it where it is. You know, on TV, I'm very proud that we bring that level of quality to TV each week. But you know, we are a film company, Lucasfilm, and we always plan on delivering that type of quality to you guys wherever it is.
Jonathan?
Hi guys, we recently had a fan poll in Insider for the best episodes of the season, the last season of Clone Wars, and it's not going to be published till October the 23rd, but I'm going to tell you that the best episode according to the fans was Revenge. Why do you think that one resonated with their readership?
I've answered everything up to now.
Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, in terms of Darth Maul, the guy's got the Boba Fett factor going on, you know? He looks cool, and there was an attitude that was established in that movie. So I think our job was just to, I mean, you can't do the same thing. You can't bring the character back and have it be exactly what it was, you know? So we actually had to sit around and talk about, well, if there could be two Sith, you don't just pick a guy who's good at sword fighting. He's got to be good at pretty much everything. If you're going to pick another, you know, an apprentice and actually spend years training him, he's got to be really smart, and he's got to be someone who could eventually take over the mantle of master. And so, but aside from all, it was always our aspiration to go there, which you will see in this season. You'll start discovering new elements of this character. But the big thing for Revenge and for Brothers was to just describe the cost of what had happened to him, not just physically but mentally. And then also just to show you the unadulterated dark side of the Force, you know, like this is what it is. It isn't just cool leather suits and red lightsabers, it's madness and it's despair and it's pain. You know, that's sort of where we went with it. So he'll get funnier as he goes on.
Funnier.
he becomes hilarious, and then they just poured him over to detours.
Careful.
All right, Lucas?
Following up on that, Sam, what's it like for you as an actor, and is there any additional pressure in the fact that you closed out last season and you kick off this season? So here's this huge cast and all these people that have been working together on this show for a while, and then it's the Sam Witwer show for the end of season 4 and the start of season 5.
Well, it's the Star Wars show. It's not, you know, I mean, the thing is that the character, I can do whatever the hell I want in the room if the character isn't shot correctly, if characters aren't reacting, the other characters around Darth Maul aren't reacting with fear or awe. I mean, if all these things don't line up, you know, if he isn't lit correctly, it doesn't quite work, you know? So when they shoot him from certain angles that make him look scary, when everyone's afraid of him, when everyone's talking about him when he's not on screen, well then my job is very easy. Then I just get to be quiet and quietly confident, you know. So that's really the trick.
You don't like Sam, he's a big nerd. He fits right in with, you know, this group over here. It is too.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, and I want to bring this up. You saw the episode. The new one, the season 5 opener. I didn't know that the pirate captain was this guy. I had no idea.
Yeah. Not Hondo, but the one Jiro. Yeah.
Yeah, Jiro.
Jiro?
Yeah.
Add that to my list. I'll be signing next year.
we were talking like.
So the G or a J?
But you have to, whatever you say, you have to say it with confidence. It's Tiro.
Yeah.
Jiro. We actually have, we were just talking, we actually have several scenes together as he is several different characters that, you know, that Maul will be interacting.
But you talked about Revenge and just, you know, the closer and the opener for Sam, but he's, you know, Mortis was a huge arc for us. And
Yeah.
Sam was a huge piece of that.
We worked, so that was fun. That was a lot of fun to do that.
Yeah.
Who's next? Oh, Eric, hey.
Dave, you mentioned, and George also mentioned how the show's gotten more mature and darker. Really, for anyone, have you been sort of surprised by how far you've been able to push it, and content-wise? And is there ever a time where you're like, maybe we need to pull back a little bit? What we're gonna do?
Oh yeah, I mean there's stuff that we shoot that does not make it into the show at all. You know, I could give you an example, but it's so intense. But you know, there's a level that I say, okay, that you know, that's kind of enough. I try not to do stuff that goes beyond what you see in the movies. I mean, I fully realize that a lot of kids have not seen Revenge of the Sith, and nor would you expect them to. It's a very intense movie. So that clearly illustrates my problem, is that I've got Attack of the Clones on one side, which is kind of a beginning of a downfall, and then I've got Revenge of the Sith, where it's a complete downfall of the good guys. So I can't, in the middle of all that, make this narrative that's like, yeah, but everything was bunny rabbits and kittens right up until the end. You know, you don't like cats anyway. But, you know, so it's a hard place to be. What I really took away from the screening last night, though, was that when Obi-Wan rose up with his 2 lightsabers and defeated Maul and Oppressed, the place went nuts. I think that's a very powerful thing. I think it means that we've effectively made the villains very powerful, very dangerous, and the people are always hungry for your heroes to overcome it. And, you know, I can't waste that gold, so to speak. I want to make sure that when we play our cards right, we play them well. Ultimately, you know, showing that they had a lot of victories, but didn't understand ultimately that Palpatine was controlling the whole thing. They just missed the one critical thing that probably could have got them to victory. And I think in this season, you'll see that it was a lot more perilous, Palpatine's plan, than even he thought possible. He tried to control many futures to make it all happen, but it's just not that easy to do. And there are many obstacles that could get in his way, not just the Jedi.
To add to the piece about some things don't make it, last night after Sebastian's arm was cut off, the camera angle was on his shoulder and you see the bone. Now that was, obviously we've seen arms and things cut off, but that was, I think, maybe the first time we've seen some carnage there. Was there anything related to that scene that was kind of, was there any discussions about, do we have to do this or do we not?
Oh yeah. I mean, Joel, I was like, we got to make that a little darker, Joel, because I can really see the T-bone.
It was a lot brighter before.
It used to be a lot brighter. Yeah. I mean, it would have been a hard thing to cover up, or we cut it. There are other things where, you know, certain things happen and we don't, you know, show the head rolling down the stairs or anything like that. But, you know, you have to be careful. You have to be sensitive to it. You know, it's, Darth Vader scared me as a kid, there's no doubt, you know, but I didn't dislike the character. I fearfully respected the character. You know, part of growing up, it's like the Grimm fairy tale. It's something, actually, when Frank Oz came to speak to us, I think it was from animation, he actually said it's a good thing if kids get scared. He described it as, Jim Henson told him, it's something for them to overcome, something for them to see that in the end, you know, good can still triumph, you know. So I have a very, like I said, tricky situation because the end of this story is Palpatine winning. So how do we get victories in there? How do we get small personal victories in there, individual victories? You know, it's difficult. You know, we've seen some of it with the clones that have been victorious with their personalities and their individuality at times, and you know, other characters. So we'll have to see. A lot of consequences this season, but a lot of fun. I think entertaining characters like Hondo, etc.
Yeah, this question is for Dave. Sandtroopers.com would like to know: are you surprised there? Hasbro seems to have gone in reverse in terms with the toys. Are you surprised that you're not seeing more a bigger emphasis on the Clone Wars line?
Not particularly. I mean, I think, you know, when you look at collectors in general of Star Wars, there's such a legacy of, you know, the live-action cinematic-looking figures, and I think that it was always going to be interesting to see how they responded to any type of animated-style figures. I think it's exciting to have taken some of our characters like Ahsoka and done her in a live-action fashion.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm really excited to see that happen. I think that, you know, it just continues to move us in and say it's just all part of the same big Star Wars franchise. So, you know, whatever decisions they make, I'm sure they're making for sound reasons. I love the work that Hasbro does. Some of the Clone Wars figures that made Kato Parasiti, Serapos have been fantastic figures. I'd love to see more of them, you know, in the future. Totally up to them. I got to get this in for Seth Green, but he's dying for a Lance Radley figure. So if you want to take up a cause, you know, you guys, you fans got Ben Quattro today. I don't know how that happens. So
That was caught up.
yeah, do Seth Solid and get Lance Radley.
We'll make
you know,
it.
that would be. He will be forever grateful.
Glenn from WDW waited for Ashley, actually.
We brought up earlier that 34% of the audience is now girls. Your character's headlining that, obviously, in conjunction with that thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely don't think it's just Ahsoka headlining that, because there's so many strong female characters. I mean, Padme, of course, but Ventress is awesome. Ventress, I just love that character. I mean, it's countless, and I definitely, you know, credit Dave and his team for including so many strong female characters. But I mean, it's something that, of course, I hoped would happen. We've talked about that a lot. I mean, in the very beginning, I remember asking, hey, is this a hope? Was she created to increase the female audience? And I mean, that wasn't really your hope, right? But
no, I just felt pretty strongly, Henry Gilroy and I felt strongly, if we did another young boy character, it's like repeating Anakin and Luke all over again. And we just didn't want to do that. And so we started with a girl. And, you know, I had a young cousin at the time named Ashley, and you know, watching her grow up was a big influence on me, and seeing, you know, her kind of challenged in what she liked in stories and stuff. And I thought, well, it'd be great to get a girl with a lightsaber out there. And I found a great girl to carry the lightsaber over here. So I think it's worked out great. You know, you've been an ambassador beyond belief for fans. It's amazing. You're a tiny powerhouse.
But I will say, I have personally seen a difference after doing 4 years of Disney Star Wars Weekends, which is such a special event. It's so great for families, and the first year I was there, it was mostly men and boys coming through. Actually, no, the first year I signed autographs. It was mostly men and boys coming through my line. In the past 2 years, it's been mostly moms and daughters and sisters, and it's mostly girls. I would say 80% of my line is girls. And so I don't know their numbers, I just know what comes through my line, and it's really special to see. It's really nice to see that. Okay, Brian?
So last season you guys brought in the legendary Walter Murch to direct an episode. For season 5, we're looking forward. Are there any like amazing classic legendary directors that you brought in or would like to bring in? Like if you had the choice to just bring somebody in to direct an episode?
No, there isn't. I mean, we do that at, you know, George's request, actually. It's always, you know, a friend of his that comes in, like a Dwayne Dunham or a Bob Dalva, Walter Murch. It's a wonderful thing for our crew. I mean, Joel can tell you it's an exciting experience for us, but I have, you know, 5 killer episodic directors, and it's, you know, I like to showcase them. They all do such exceptional work, and you're going to see great work out of them this year. I think they've learned a lot from, you know, the greatness around them, and the Walter Murch is coming in, and, you know, so they're all highly capable. I mean, Joel, what you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just having Walter in-house was so educational for us. I really think that, you know, right after the Mara episode that we did with him, it's like we learned so much, and that guy was, you know, we were trying to keep the episodes in 22 minutes, and after it was like first draft of his editorial, split for 3 stories, we got to 22 minutes. I mean, that's like genius. And so, you know, we would pick his brain as much as possible, just hearing him talk, and even just having that 5 minutes with him, waiting for your food in the cafeteria, and you walk away like feeling you just had so much information poured all over it. It was very influential to how we were able to accelerate.
Now, Mark Hamill's a really good and famous voice actor. Is there any chance we might see him pop up on Clone Wars or any other maybe special guests in the upcoming seasons?
You know, Mark, as you said, is a huge talent, you know, probably the icon of Star Wars. I wouldn't ask Mark to do anything on the show until I had something that's really awesome and unique. It has to be really special. There have been times when I thought, well, maybe this could be it, but then I thought, nah, it's just not going to have the impact. So, you know, I want to be able to cast Mark in a way that's meaningful to him to come in and perform the role for him. So I've had some near misses where I thought maybe this is it, and then I backed off of it. It's on my mind. It's on my list of things to do. I think it won't happen in season 5, but you know, hopefully before it's all said and done, I will be able to get Mark Hamill back into the Star Wars franchise. But it will be in a way that is unexpected, I'll say that, to make it worth his while, out of respect for him.
This is for Matt. Are there moments where you kind of feel like you would like to more or less act, play the role of Anakin, but more or less like in his darker side? You know what I mean? More or less like Hayden kind of was like in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun for me to be able to do the whole spectrum of Anakin that we're experiencing in the Clone Wars. I mean, I love when the Clone Wars started, he was a little more swashbuckling and innocent and kind of like everybody's hero. So I love that part of him, and that's kind of still there, but it's a lot of fun to take him to Revenge of the Sith. It's a fun challenge to accept, to try to smoothly take him that direction. And I think it's pleasing for all of us as fans to see those times where he is like too angry, and you're like, "Whoa, dude, why are you so crazy right now?" but that's great because we know what's coming, and it's a blast for me to do that. So no, I don't have like one. I don't like playing this area of him more than this. I mean, I love it all. Yeah, as a fan, I love to see the dark moments.
And you kind of had that opportunity a little bit in the Mortis trilogy when he kind of gave himself willingly to the son.
Yeah, well, Mortis was a crazy arc for him. I think he found out a lot about himself that he might or might not have wanted to even know, because maybe he's not ready for that. Right. But yeah, it was that was an amazing arc for me to play.
How will the 22 episodes of season 5 pan out in terms of storytelling? Will we see them as different arcs as we have previously, and will the story be linear? Can you just explain how?
It's pretty much like previous seasons, except this season they're mainly 4-part arcs. I think the sense of the stories move forward pretty clearly as far as what's happening. So I don't think it's a spoiler to say if you saw the premiere last night, you see that by the end of that episode that we tied directly into last season for once, which we really haven't really done much. We go right into that same story at the beginning of this season, and then at the end of it, Palpatine says, "Okay, enough with this Maul guy. Leave him alone. Get back to your business of fighting the war." And then, so the next corresponding episodes are all pretty much about the Clone War and Onderon, and you're introduced to a bunch of new characters there. Each of these 4-part arcs is basically made that they could just play out as an 88-minute movie if need be. And so that's kind of what you get into that. But beyond that, each one kind of fits with the other without being implicit. But you get a sense of the time that's passed and where everybody's at, especially off of Ahsoka. Ahsoka's always the thread. You can watch her and tell kind of where we're at based on her emotional attitude towards anything and her experiences. And she changes throughout the season quite a bit depending on what's occurred in the arc. There are also some considerations for timing where we say blown up a base or something and it remains destroyed. Like you saw in the episode last night that Mother Talzin's decimated Night Sister clans and zombies were strewn all about the ground still. So we kept that connectivity to the previous season. So we do those things.
So will we see more of Ahsoka throughout season 5? Because obviously, we've had 3 episodes where we haven't seen her at all.
She gets about, I would say, her normal share of the work, except that there is a focus on her at a certain point. She's a pretty pivotal character in 2 of the biggest arcs this season, and I don't think that's ever been the case. I think you've always had your kind of one-off, like Wookiee Hunt, Padawan Lost arc. It's all about you, but this would be more like 4 parts, and 4 parts later, and so we'll see how that all pans out for you. Sometimes you're just not around, like last night. Yeah, you were.
Oh, in the episode. Like, what did I miss last night?
You had the whole premiere. There was a whole premiere for Clone Wars last night.
Do that.
Mostly for Ashley and Matt here. you've been developing these characters, and of course you're developing them alongside the writers, alongside the directors. Is there any, now that you're a few years in, is there any limitation to voice acting that doesn't let you develop or connect with the characters as much as you would if you were playing them in live action?
I mean, for me, I think, aside from the obvious, you know, you don't have props and scenes and other actors to physically interact with, there's not a whole lot of difference, because I think that some of this stuff is beautifully written. I think that some of the character interactions and development by themselves and as a team are, I mean, top-notch. So, no, when you have good writing, you have amazing story, which is kind of king, it just flows pretty smooth.
Yeah, I think, you know, the big misconception about voice acting is that, you know, voice actors are actors. You know, sometimes there's a disconnect there and people don't realize that you have to be a good actor to be a voice actor. And people think that they can just do voices and come on the show. And there's so many talented actors that are part of this cast. I mean, Dee blows me away with his clone episodes. They're unbelievable. I will say in an episode we did in the upcoming season, I mean, my heart was like beating out of my chest, and he remembers that. I'm not saying anything. I can really get into it. It's the same. It's the same.
Slippery slope.
You just get emotional.
You know, I'd like to say that with just the limited characters that I've done on this show, I don't know if you guys appreciate the pressure that you know these two actors are under when it comes to fan expectation. And I mean, you know, it's Star Wars, right? So we have Anakin Skywalker and his apprentice. So two kind of important roles. You don't want to get them wrong, right? And again, to a limited extent, I know what that pressure's about. But these guys, you know, every other episode are faced with something that, you know, Dave is going to get letters about if people aren't pleased with it. So they have my respect fully for being able to handle that. It's a cool thing.
Now, after sitting through Ian McDermott and Mark Hamill and Warwick Davis and them all talking about doing the live action, they've all expressed that they're not able to go back and watch their own work for their own personal reasons. Since this is all, you know, voice acting and then the cartoon, are you guys able to have some kind of disconnect where you can go back and actually enjoy watching the series?
Totally.
Well, I gotta say, the series, watching the series, that is the feature films, that is a whole different experience for me. I mean, when I finally watched through 1, 2, and 3 with my daughter, and she was 11, and she's halfway through episode 3, she said, "I don't think I want to watch the rest of this year, Daddy. Maybe when I'm 12." And the reason she said that to me is because of how invested she is in these characters from having seen our show, connecting it into the features. And it invests all of the drama with so much more depth and subtlety, I think. And so she couldn't watch it anymore. And then going back and watching 4 through 6 again, for me personally, again, it's a whole different experience with knowing all these things, all the water that's under the bridge with these characters. It's really, it just feels very, very different to me, a much more substantial, dramatic experience, personally.
I mean, who would ever thought that, you know, if we said to you 15, 20 years ago that you would see stormtroopers, but have a real sense of who was under that helmet, you know? Because now we have all these stories where D is killing himself, talking to himself over and over again in a vocal booth to give you personality for all of these soldiers that are out there. And by the time, you know, become the emperor, the empire, like it's a really sad ending for these gentlemen.
Something you said at dinner that I had never thought about. I don't know. We've just been so busy, but you know, all the kids that have watched Clone Wars now, they know Anakin Skywalker really, really well. They have a great sense of who this guy is. When I was a kid and I watched New Hope, I had no clue. So when Obi-Wan says, you know, Vader betrayed and murdered your father, I was like, oh wow, that sucks for Luke.
That's terrible.
But
Oh boy.
these kids now, if you play a New Hope for your kid and he's been watching our show,
Devastating.
that's how they find out that their hero, Anakin Skywalker, dies because Darth Vader kills them.
And they have to hear it from an Obi-Wan who's been out of action for a while. I mean, it's
totally different for them.
traumatizing.
Totally different. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, there are a bunch of articles out there by, I can't remember the name of the guy, but maybe you guys can look it up for me when you write your articles. And he did an article on every one of the Star Wars movies because he decided to show his kids the Star Wars movies. But they've been watching Clone Wars the whole time. And he decided to do the order. Let's get super geeky here, right?
Well,
he decided to go 4, 5, and then do a flashback, 1, 2, 3, and then 6. And by starting with 4 is a real good setup movie. You know, Luke gets handed a lightsaber and he waves it around before anyone ever goes into combat. And Jawas are strange, interesting creatures. Tusken Raiders are terrifying. Everything is all new, and they bring you up to speed in that movie. But that movie, coming from Clone Wars, and then sending them into The Empire Strikes Back and the spoilerific stuff that happens there, that this guy wrote in these articles was tremendously traumatizing to the kids. But then, of course, they really needed to know where it went. And then by the time you get to episode 6, and they've been through this huge journey, when you see Anakin at the end, they're just, you know, the thing that sticks with me is the kid goes, what, Anakin's back? His dad's like, because he was good again? Yeah. So he's a good guy? Yeah. He said, that's my favorite part. And I'm like, well, that's the point, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
Right there.
So one of the things that the show has done the best is to reveal or expose or explore things that we only heard of in the movies that we've never gotten to see. Is there a next big place or thing or idea that's on the horizon that we haven't heard of yet that's going to come through?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, I think that this season we've written so many stories. We deal with a lot of the really big questions. You know, not so much this season in some ways, but you know, in future stories George has asked us to write. It's pretty compelling what we're doing. This season, though, focusing on, you know, the characters that we created in the Clone Wars, the Satines of the world, the Ahsokas of the world, Pre Vizsla, you know, Darth Maul, Hondo. We see a lot of things happen to these characters that, you know, we brought in or brought back, and I think there are consequences for these characters, unexpected consequences. We introduced some new characters. The planet Onderon, you know, is a big, vast new world. We go to a planet called Scipio, which is actually the home of the banking clan, plan that George had. So we're going to go see that planet where the mutants are and get into that. So some really interesting things that answer a lot of questions about the formation of the empire itself. A lot of what you will see, especially by the end of the season, more than ever before on our show foreshadows the creation of the empire. And you will be, by the end of the season, just like the Jedi, looking at all of this around you going, wow, we didn't quite see this coming. This has really developed more than maybe we thought it was going to. So there's a real movement by the Tarkins of the world. And I think that's pretty compelling as far as the big picture and how it connects to A New Hope and what the world we see the empires of the future.
It's knockout too. I mean, it's really. I mean, I've only seen a fraction of it, but you know, going off of the trailer that you have seen, it's really a knockout season. I am very, very excited to see it.
They're funny. They never get to see it. For some of them, it's like, you know, the first time they saw it was last night when you guys saw it. So they record this stuff, and it's like, I just explain it all to them. Oh, this is going to be great. It's like this, and you're here, and the bridge, and snow, don't worry about it. It's going to look awesome. You know, and then
doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
Right. And we go away, and then we do, you know, a whole bunch of other episodes. So they forget about that episode, and then when they come up to the ranch, I lock them in the theater. I'm like, just go watch this stuff. And you know, for you guys, it's like you're literally transported. So back to your question, like, do we watch it? I think it's almost more interesting to watch because they had sometimes they had minimal context for what it was actually going to be. So when they see it, where they understand where they were standing when they said that, and who was around, how the lighting is.
Yeah, it's like a year later too since we did the performances, so you're completely disconnected from it. You know, you forget almost what you've done. But you know, as the show has developed, the great thing is the patience in the storytelling. How it started as a brighter, simpler series, and as it's gone on, things have gotten more complicated and more adult. And what's cool is that as those stories get more complicated, the show gets more visually stunning and complex, which is you know, they all could have been more impatient. They could have gone straight for these things right away, or let's do a Mortis thing in the first season or something like that. But it wouldn't have been the right call. You know, you want to know what you're doing by the time you really get to those heavy-hitting things, and you really want to have these characters established so that the audience feels something huge when something happens to any one of them. You know, and it's that patience in storytelling is something that I admire in terms of what they do. But it's great that, you know, this guy gets to really develop a visual look that is equal to the task of telling these tremendous mini Star Wars movies.
You don't light it like animation. You know, Dave said to me many years ago, it's like we need to get Frank Miller, get it very graphic, make it look, you know, something different. And then one day George came in and had us push it even farther than before, which was really good for the look. And so because of that, I've tried to push it even more so cinematically, and with the influences of obviously the feature films that are out there, but movies that always influence me. I'll watch a movie, you know, I'll see Drive, the movie Drive, and then instantly it's like, I have to have that look. That scene reminds me of this scene, and we try and push it more cinematically, and it just helps with like what these guys are doing. It's like we're talking about the rest of season 5. It's like I can't just have you guys just be delivering lines to each other. It really has to be like you saw Anakin's bedroom in the clip today, and immediately I'm like, well, that is Elliot's room from E.T. It has to be like that because there's this feeling of like a little boy's room that I wanted, and it was just always having the light like bars move around Anakin's and Obi's face. It's like it's that kind of thing that just keeps the audience like, you throw out the fact that you're watching animation and you're sucked into the delivery of the story because it's cinematic.
Well, and he was saying in the panel that you know, not to underline this point just in case it gets you in trouble, but that he used some of the Mustafar matte paintings, you know, that were used in the movie Revenge of the Sith, and he used them in the show. And the fact that you could actually get away with using those paintings in the background of our show, and it's seamless, that tells you where the visual bar has been set.
But we're still maintaining the animated edge because, you know, George was very clear with that early on, and Dave was with me in the beginning that the shapes have to be hard, the paintwork always has to look like it's like dragged with a fork, and it just has this look no matter what. You know, sometimes when you go through the still frames, like even putting the slides together for these presentations, it's like sometimes I forget which one was a lighting concept and which one's the actual render. And that's what we really want to achieve.
And it's so exciting for us. I mean, I think there's a three-dimensionality to a vocal performance, in addition to the three-dimensional visual storytelling that goes on. And when we get to see that, as everyone here has on the big screen with proper aspect ratio, in that digital clarity, it's like that. It's such a shocking, marvelous surprise to see the full rendering of that, which is so far beyond anything that we imagine as we're playing out the scene together in the studio. I mean, we're thrilled by it just as much as anybody else.
Well, it's got to be amazing also for you guys to see like what Keith Kellogg and the animation team does.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Too, because I mean that's another aspect, I guess, to being a voice actor is that someone has to actually animate the face to do what you did. It's like some of the stuff you're talking about, like interactions with.
I got so excited seeing Gregor today.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like I remember his story. I remember what we did, but to see him. I mean, and you don't even have to know hardly anything about the guys. It's this guy, he's putting on the helmet. It's like, it's very exciting. It's really exciting.
What's really fun about this entire team is every time that we visit the ranch, any of us visit the ranch, it's so apparent how motivated every member of that team is. Everyone you see in the hall, they're so motivated to make the best experience that they possibly can make. And what it really feels like for all of us, and probably for them too, that, you know, it's like, as an actor, you're making one gear, and you want to make that gear really, really well, so you work really, really hard, and you're working this microscopic little piece, and then you hand it to Dave, like, oh, here's that gear you wanted. And then he takes it, and then he gathers, you know, this lever, and this other, you know, this spring, and these other gears, and they finally put it all together, and the fact that it all works, and that people are anticipating what other people are doing, you know? I mean, I've seen some of the things that the animators have done for some of the stuff that I've done. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I intended. That look right there, that's it. That was what I was trying to convey vocally. You know?
It may have been what you were conveying visually because we're sometimes videotaped.
Yeah.
And I want to say, going back to a little bit about our vocal performance, Dave was underplaying his direction.
Oh, yes.
Because he is by far the best director I've ever worked with. Because we don't get to see anything usually, unless it's ADR, which is a sentence here or there. And for me, sometimes the stage direction just makes no sense because I'm more of a visual learner. I need to see it. So I have to trust on Dave. And he's brilliant with his direction to us. And sometimes he knows us each individually. And so his direction changes depending on the person. He knows how to get the best performance out of everyone and makes it a comfortable room, a safe room, and that's not easy. And there are many people that can't make it seem as seamless and as easy as he does.
And relaxed, too. It's a very relaxed environment. I was recording some mall stuff in Montreal because I couldn't come back to LA. I was shooting B unit. So I was with these very experienced people at the studio, people who owned the studio in this studio. And oh yeah, we're doing Clone Wars. Oh, Clone Wars, cool. Yeah, that's that Star Wars thing, cool. All right. And we did a bunch of stuff. And then we were taking a break, and in the middle of it, the studio owner and the engineer came to me and said, hey, who's this Dave Filoni guy? And I'm like, well, you know, and I explained who Dave was. And he's like, we've worked on features, we've worked on video games, we've worked on television shows, we've worked with some of the top people in huge name talent. He said, this guy's like the best we've ever worked with. In terms of what he wants, the clarity.
What are you voting for here? Like, I won't kill your character off. Is that what what are you guys trying to do?
I think Maul becomes their friend. And he's trying to help each other. I mean, it's a twist they're not going to see coming.
I'm safe. They start dating.
You don't have to kiss that, do you? That's why you're so quiet.
No, I'm safe.
It's all right.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank
So
you,
you guys, we have time for 2 more questions.
Fred Rich from Autographs. I think mostly for Dave and Sam, but anyone. As growing up with the original trilogy, there's been a few moments that were really special and nostalgic. The birth of the Iron Cannon in the first episode, and the use of very powerful, the use of the blockade run is actually running a blockade. For me, that was a huge connection. Do you have moments where you, favorite moments that tie into the original trilogy that you've done that just, that you know are going to be really just special for the older fans?
Anytime I'm behind a couple chairs and a few people inside of a cockpit, it's going into outer space. It's like that to me. It's like every single time that Dave and I look at each other, it's like there's no question on how to light that shot. There's no question on how to make that look. I think everyone on the team, it's like Dave made a quote that I believe as well, that he was quoting Scorsese when he said that you seem to make sure that everybody's kind of making the same movie, and if we're all making the same show, everybody on our show, it's like we're trying to actually use as much influence from the original features as possible. Like everything, the way that the Jedi cruisers are lit, everything just has to, like we've got these one shots where you're just underneath it and you're just like, that's Star Wars. We did it all the time. I mean,
But Star Wars itself is kind of a combination of all this film lore from, in some cases, different countries, Kurosawa films, and a little bit of Wizard of Oz, and all these different, you know, and I think one of the reasons that George sticks with it is that he realizes that you can do all kinds of stuff world. You know, you can do noir stories, you can do fun adventure stories. I mean, you know, as you were talking about like people in a cockpit, I'm thinking about the droid clip you guys showed, which is like people in a cockpit. They all happen to be droids though.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. A bunch of R2 units having a little adventure of their own, you know, with their own personalities. But I mean, you can do all kinds of these different stories, and so you can go and not just draw from the Star Wars movies, but draw from just all kinds of film lore and bring it into Star Wars, because that's how it was created to begin with, westerns and, you know, all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's a Darth Maul Apocalypse Now poster right over there, and that's we talked about that when we were doing it. We're like, this is a little bit of, he's kind of like Colonel Kurtz in the cave when he has the spider legs.
For me, it's any time, you know, you think of New Hope and Obi-Wan saying for over 1,000 generations, that makes for peace and justice in the universe. And I think of that quote, and I hear Alec Guinness, and I look at our show, and I see Jedi Knights, guardians of peace and justice in our show. And I think I never would have imagined when I was a boy that I would be privileged to be a part of telling that story with George Lucas. And that's when it connects for me, and that's when I go, this is a big responsibility. And that's when you know you're playing with heroes that are giants and villains that are treacherous, and you know, all of the days of Camelot and Arthur and knights and, you know, dragons and dungeons and things that I grew up with, and we're just doing it in the most modern form possible, the most exciting way possible, and continuing a storytelling tradition that goes far beyond what we've done. And that's when I think you connect to what George was doing in A New Hope, and that's what you connect to what Joseph Campbell's always talked about. And that's what I think brings people together at a convention like this in a weekend now.
Who hasn't had a chance to ask a question? I don't think you have. You're our final question.
Right, Sam, you talked earlier about the pressure that like Ashley and Matt are under doing Anakin and Ahsoka and characters with such high fan expectations. How did you deal with that yourself in taking on such a huge fan favorite character like Darth Maul?
Take some Xanax and then just go for it. No, it's first of all, okay, there's the foundation of the show being quite good. So you know, to a certain extent, they're not going to make you look foolish. You know, there's that just having that assurance gives an actor a great deal of freedom. And the other part of it is just collaborating. What do we do? I mean, we just talk about it a lot.
We went crazy. We went crazy. I wanted you to be like a lunatic, deranged, if you got cut in half and lived in a cave made of half metal parts and couldn't remember who you were, and you're like, okay. And then you just started screaming, and they're all like, wow, this is going to be awesome. I don't know if it's going to air, but it's going to be awesome.
Can he swear?
But for me, the best thing about that performance in the first episode was when we had to be a maniac, and then I said, there's one moment where you get to be the guy that was in episode 1. There's one moment when you look at Savage and you say, revenge. I must have revenge. And that's the direct tie to the Phantom Menace, because that's something that Maul's pretty famous for saying. So you brought it down to that moment. And it was highly effective. You did that so well. So there's more to come from you. Clancy plays hockey great, the two of you, the screamers, you know. Really, really well done.
Well, and you talked about this, though. We appreciate when, I mean, actors like Sam and other new guest star actors come in, because you really raise the bar for us. And, you know, I remember the Mortis trilogy when you first came in. That's the thing. I mean, everyone continues to raise the bar, and you don't doubt yourself. You just know, okay, I gotta make this show better and better. And yeah, it is competitive,
It's fun, but it's
in
competitive.
a good way. Yeah.
Matt and Aaron were in a scene with Sam, and they were just going at it. You know, I could be more dramatic than you, bro. I could be more dramatic than you. They were just going back and forth, Anakin and the son, and it was awesome. Remember that? You guys catapulted.
Yeah, that's not what was going through my head, but
He's a Cleveland Browns fan.
Well, you know, you were talking actually earlier about can you watch the episodes and, you know, insecurities as an actor and all that stuff. There's a part of that. Actually, just the other day we were in the booth and some kind of Anakin scene, and I wanted to do it again. I wanted another try at it. They was like, dude, we got it. It was good. It's great. Let's move on. I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Okay, all right. So there's a little bit of that. Like, you know, you gotta you gotta hold up to what these characters are and do the characters justice, you know, because they're such complex and especially in Anakin's case, he's so complex and you just want to do him justice. You want to make sure
you guys always want to do it so well. I'm in that privileged position where I don't have to push them. I don't have to say it's not good enough. I don't have to say, could we do it one more time? I mean, if I let them, they would perform all day because they just want to get it better and better. Corey Burton is a genius for that. You know, and oftentimes I'll say, are you guys happy with that? If you say no, I let you fire away one more time. You know, and if I'm a good voice director at all, it's because I learned from Andrea Romano, and I have to get that in. She's a genius of that field. So I'm fortunate to have her be a part of my mentoring process as director. But yeah, I mean,
because we worked with her on Avatar.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
she's terrific.
All right, well, thank you so much to our panelists, and thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.